We think we do better than people in ancient kingdoms, say in the Middle East or in Mexico, in Africa. And we do it because our gods are not physical beings. They are not statues. They're not totem poles. They are not statues of grim animals and quasi-human, quasi-animal creatures. They're not objects. They are not pillars, designs, or other things. They are, in fact, abstract. We have, I guess, the university education to thank for that abstractification of deities. And we actually get much more of mileage. We get many more benefits from the modern deities that seem to survey Chattanooga and Hamilton County than we would if we followed the old legacy theory of worship of idols and made deities of sticks or stone or metal or other things that are immobile. And our deities actually speak, right? Remember, there's a criticism in the scriptures of the pagan deities who neither breathe nor sleep, and they have hands that do not grasp, and they have ears that do not hear, eyes that do not see. Our deities today, because they are abstract, in fact, they're corporations, they really do a lot, and they provide security, or so we think here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga. But the deities we make are ones really kind of our own construction. They're ones of our own fabrication, and even God Himself, even the deity, the Creator worshipped by Christians, has been to some extent converted into a kind of a corporation that we can manage. Now the problem is, of course, that the corporations that we have converted into deities, such as, let's say, quote, national government, unquote, right? America. These are deities that, in some respects, have gotten away from us. They have their own independent sovereignty, their own wills, and though we project upon them great hopes and aspirations for the future and security for our aged parents and our children, and maybe free college education and so on, thanks to Governor Haslam, we are fearful that maybe they've gotten away and they are not responsive as we want them to be. Though perhaps in our spiritual walk, they do respond to us, and they still merit the great hope that we pile upon them. I say these things sparked partly by an innocuous story on TV9's website about a Mississippi state trooper who voided a traveler's ticket when the driver, Mike Bowers, at the rolling down of his window there at the traffic stop in San Antonio, Mississippi, began a conversation. He said, "How are you and how are the officers and the troopers in Mississippi doing in light of all the senseless killing around the country of police officers?" He said he's doing good. This is Mike Powers, the driver, talking. He said he's doing good, and it's tough, but that he was going to keep going, that he was going to keep doing what he needed to do to help people, Powers said. Well, the trooper there at the window is Jason Ailes, who handed Mike Powers a speeding ticket. And, well, what did Powers do in return? He handed him a wooden prayer bracelet. I told him, "I want you to have this. Hopefully, if you ever needed to, God forbid, it will come in handy and keep you safe." Trooper Ailes says, according to TV9's accounting of this from WOAI, a TV station, "I was so touched by it, I almost teared up there. I gave this man a ticket. Now, I gave this man a ticket worth maybe 200 something, but still, out of his kindness, he wanted to give me something." And so Jason Ailes, the trooper in Mississippi, voided the ticket. I think this is San Antonio, Texas, maybe out of a Texas radio, a Texas television station, but this did take place in the state of Mississippi. And as for the bracelet, well, it's hanging on the camera inside Trooper Ailes's patrol car. It's dangling there, and it is suggestive, perhaps, that if we have an amulet or a charm, even one representing the Christian God, we can somehow have an added protection outside of the providence of God, outside of God's authority. and we can effectively control what happens. We can control what happens, that we may not know the what of what is to happen. We somehow prevent the worst from happening by having that bracelet, that charm, a prayer bracelet that we can resort to, praying perhaps through it to God, maybe perhaps praying to it, or praying in its presence somehow. If it's near us and we pray to God, our prayer of pleadings, of help, of sorrow for sin, perhaps that he will hear us more because we have Mike Powers's prayer bracelet. And so the trooper, Jason Ailes, just takes up the genteel offer there that object handed him in that street encounter, and has it on his camera. This is David Tulis, and our show is Nooganomics.com. And that's the sponsor of our show. The show really is, I guess, just the David Tulis Show, and I do thank you for giving me a couple of minutes of your time. We are sponsored by Nooganomics.com, which is the website that covers local economy and the free market, and has gotten off to a good fall season. I have been writing something almost every day, and touch today on a terrific analysis of Kim Davis, and the duty of a Rowan County, Kentucky sheriff to defend and protect her, just as the governor of that state should do likewise. It's not happening. There is no protection being granted to her by the governor in his high office. It's not happening. And perhaps we suggest that it should, based on law, based on what we like to understand as the rule of law, and have this gutsy clerk protected. The sheriff in that county, if you go to Nooganomics.com, you can read about him, his background. He is a member of Elliotteville Baptist Church, and is a man sworn to uphold the Kentucky Constitution, including the amendment, which is a marriage amendment defining marriage as between one man and one woman. And here we have a woman, a defenseless woman, and she has been jailed. Now, if it were a man, it might let him go, right? But particularly when it comes to women in domestic abuse situations, that his department bends over backwards. Jack Carter does on his Cowan County Sheriff's website. The county bends over backwards to protect women, and especially those who are facing domestic abuse. This man has been, for 3 decades, 31 years altogether, the sheriff in a couple of installments, and it has not made the slightest move to protect Mrs. Davis, and he should do so, even though she does not request it, even though perhaps she does not think to demand legal, political, and military protection, which is what the sheriff provides. The sheriff is the most important law enforcement person in any county. I say in any county, whatever, in the federal republic, in any of the states. He is the most important person because he has, in the end, a kind of military power. It is a kind of a paramilitary power, but he has, with his deputies, because he's voted for by the people, he has the strength to enforce common law rights and provide common law protections. And certainly marriage at common law, it can only be between one man and one woman. It is inconceivable in any common law sense that 2 men could marry, or 2 women. And so he has a duty to enforce the common law definition, since his office from the ancient shire reef, the guardian of the shire in Old England, that was his duty, to keep the peace in the county and to protect the people and their rights. And same here, he needs to be protecting the people of that county and the definition of marriage, which cannot be, I suggest here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, cannot be redefined. It simply can't be redefined, especially by a judicial body in Washington that has no subject matter jurisdiction. That's the thing that makes the whole Obergefell versus Hodges decision a remarkable bit of whimsy, because the states have the authority over marriage. They always have. I would say that even they lack that authority. since marriage is a thing of common right. You don't have to ask anybody permission to marry, except perhaps the dad of your intended. Maybe there is that request that has to be made, but marriage is a matter of common right. Every man has a right to marry. Every woman has a right to marry. Each man has a right to marry a woman of his choice, and each woman has the authority to consent to a marriage to the man of her choosing, to the man of her acceptance. And so it's a common law right. States should not be involved in it, but they are. And so given that for a moment, we'll just provisionally accept that and go on to say that states have that jurisdiction. It does not belong to the national government in the least, not the slightest. And so we are compelled, as it were, to live a judicial fantasy, a kind of a wet dream of nationalists of the Alexander Hamiltonian type. Our county, by the way, named after Alexander Hamilton, the great first Treasury Secretary and great defender of the Constitution, who wanted it to be passed, and who promised that what has happened today could not conceivably happen. And yet, given human failings, it did. Well, what about this deity? This deity that the gods, these are gods we control. Trooper Jason Ailes takes Mike Bowers's amulet, a prayer bracelet, a wooden prayer bracelet, and he keeps it. Somehow God is going to show him more favor than if he didn't have it. Somehow this thing has its own power. And this is a resort within the Christian context to a kind of magic. We control, we think we sort of take on to ourselves a measure of sovereignty, right? We borrow from God's sovereignty and we direct things. We kind of control what he does. He can do things, but he only can do things within limits, right? Of course, this is you should laugh at me a little bit, because it is inconceivable that we can control the real God, and yet we think we have these man-made deities. We have the national government, but even there, we are fooled. We think we control. This is a common misconception, I think, that's shared by people in the Democratic Party and in the Pachyderm Club, perhaps people in the Tea Party. And the pro-abortion crowd and the social action crowd, the Chattanoogans Organized for Action Verbs group, the Chris Brooks's group, they think that they control this deity too, right? They take some of his or some of its sovereignty and they manage it. They manage it through community activism. Well, voter turnout has been bad. I put these things together because there's a story at Nooga.com this morning about September being National Voter Registration Month. Again, appealing to us, the God we control the national government. We get what we want, right? What we have is what we want. Why? Well, we vote. We are exercising the voting franchise. And so September is getting people to vote. You can go to govotn.com for voter registration information. And Trey Hargett, the Secretary of State, would be very glad to help you register to vote and to help you help other people register to vote. And yet, the deity of elections, if the national government is a kind of deity, the sacrament that satisfies that deity is waning. Its powers are becoming a little flaccid, F-L-A-C-C-I-D. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, flaccid. And it is not exercising the power it used to, kind of projecting the sovereignty of the people through itself back onto the people. Voter turnout in our county in the last election, for which I could find a quick reference to, was a story in August of 2012 in the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. There was a 23% of ballots, 23% of registered voters cast ballots in that election. The story by Chris Carroll, David Carroll's son, who's since left the paper, is about the certain elections have much more interest than others. But the point that I would want to have you consider is that it is a deity that has faded. And how is it that anybody can think that they can control God? I was reading last night at family worship. My 12-year-old son, and I shared in the reading last night of chapter 10 of Ezekiel. And it's one of two chapters in that prophetic book that has this whole mystery of the wheels within the wheels. And for example, it says in the very first chapter of the book, you're confronted with this vision of the prophet, and it has references to creatures are speeding back and forth like flashes of lightning. And as I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each creature with its four faces. This was the appearance and structure of the wheels. They sparkled like chrysolite, and all four looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. As they moved, they would go in any one of the four directions the creatures faced. The wheels did not turn about as the creature went. The rims were high and awesome, and all four rims were full of eyes all around. And when the living creatures moved, the wheels besides them moved. And there's this wonderful vision that is miraculous, I think, if you can attach yourself to it. And the reading last night, we had reference to cherubim. When I looked, Ezekiel, the prophet, says there were four wheels by the cherubim, one wheel by one cherub, and another wheel by each other cherub. The wheels appeared to have the color of beryl stone, and as for their appearance, all four looked alike, as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. And when I just bring that forward because, readings sometimes are providential. We follow the reading schedule at my church. There's a pair each day assigned, and the idea is that the members of that church have readings together. So when they come together and chat, they can say, "Oh, did you notice something in the reading yesterday?" And so there's this communality of ideas, and all those people saying God's words together in their minds as they read. Well, I mention that only because of the seeming coincidence, but also the idea that an amulet would give anyone control of God. And okay, well, here, all right. I know you're saying, okay, David, we're getting into theology, and this show is about local economy and the free market. What does that have to do with it? Well, here's what it has to do with. We have a welfare state that is rising on its haunches. It's very weak. It is very obese. It is rotund. It is amazingly, for all of its weight and size, it is amazingly inflexible in the maneuvers it can make. It can't save itself from the precipice at which it is near. Right? It is near the precipice. And what we have with the modern state, which is the enemy of local economy. Okay, the modern welfare state, the modern state with its ICD-10 codings going into effect across the country in a few days, in about 23 days or so. This new coding is going to be going into effect all across the country, and it's going to be an amazing thing. You won't hear anything about it, because when you go to your doctor, this is the backroom stuff that the doctor's office doesn't tell you about. But it is the rising nightmare. You could say it's almost like the monster in St. John's vision in Revelation, the monster rising from the sea and coming towards the shore. I have seen Dürer's engraving of that scene, and it's a terrifying picture that you find in. Doré was a French illustrator, and you may have seen his biblical drawings. Well, the ICD-9 coding scheme, which is a fantastic bureaucratic genius of a scheme, will add immeasurable burdens to doctors' offices around the country, and it's going to happen October the 1st. But this welfare state, which brings this system to play, it is a system of classification that comes out of the World Health Organization, the WHO, right? The WHO. Codes for diseases and signs of symptoms and findings, abnormal findings, complaints, and social circumstances, all of which are now coded, right? So you're converting your doctor into a click monkey. Your doctor is being converted into a click monkey, a kind of devolution of his high calling. That's what's happening. Well, the problem is that with the welfare state, what we've done is we've wrested predestination from God. We've taken predestination, which is a power that God has, where he controls all things, right? He controls everything that exists. There is still, of course, free will. And these concepts are not in contradiction, even though many Baptist ministers, even those of Reformed interest, would say that you can't have both together. Well, can you have God's law and God's grace together? Well, of course you can. They're not in contradiction. And same with the sovereignty of God, the idea of sovereign grace, and also the free will of the creature. It is a limited free will, of course, but what we have with the welfare state is we have a seizure of predestination from God, and that power the insurance sector, and it is a God we think we control. We think we control it. Is it good for local economy or bad for local economy? Is it good for prosperity in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, or bad that we have this machine that operates really entirely on its own? It cannot be controlled. Elections make no difference. It has seized the sovereignty of God and is now exerting it upon us.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week took over as Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union 7 days before the 9/11 attacks. Anthony Romero will be here to talk about the growing need to protect liberties guaranteed by the Constitution. Don't miss an honest look at post-9/11 America right here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Another warm and humid day expected for your Tuesday. Can't rule out an isolated afternoon shower storm. Settle weather for the midweek. Scattered showers and thunder showers becoming likely through Thursday. Highs 80 to 84. Account temps provide salary ranges for more than 375 accounting and finance jobs. Learn more by visiting accounttemps.com/salary center. Account Temps, a Robert Half company. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
When my brother and I opened our first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network.
News Talk 1240.
Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
News Talk 1240.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio I'm Lillian Wu. The jailed Kentucky clerk who refuses to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples getting some attention from politicians.
GOP presidential candidate Mike Huckabee is expected to join protesters at a rally outside the jail where Rowan County Clerk Kim Davis is being held, and he plans a private meeting with her.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers.
Her attorneys want Democratic Governor Steve Beshears to accommodate Davis' religious conviction and not force her to grant licenses to gay couples. They're also asking the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals to allow her to remove her name and title from official marriage licenses, which she says would satisfy her conscience.
Back at work today, Walter Palmer, the Minnesota dentist, at the center of an uproar over the killing of a lion in Zimbabwe. Palmer is insisting his hunt was legal, and a 4-year-old boy and his dog rescued from a well in southern Mississippi last night. The boy had been trapped for hours. Fox News, we report, you
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
There's a story in the Wall Street Journal about an obscure hedge fund, as the headline describes it, that's buying tens of billions of dollars of U.S. Treasuries. The company is not well known. It's run by a former Yale University math whiz and has been buying Treasury debt. It's called Element Capital Management, LLC. By the fund to use borrowed money to exploit small inefficiencies in the world's most liquid securities market, a strategy that is delivering sizable profits, said people close to the matter. This outfit has generated large returns. According to the story later on, in 2008, it gained 35%, and the next year, Element was up 79%, and last year, it rose just under 3%, but it was up 18.5% through July of this year. One investor said, beating most hedge funds in overall markets. Some recent gains came from bullish wagers on the dollar, the paper, the fiat currency. The firm's annualized average return has exceeded 20% since launch, investors said. Well, I hope we can say something about that, but if that set your head to spinning, well, and you are an investor, you want to get your feet on the ground with a local advisor. A local advisor from Edward Jones, and his name is Patrick Neal, and his office is next to the Target in Hickson. It's just behind the Cohutta Banking Company facility there on along 153. It's just the little plaza behind that. You'll find Patrick Neal, the Edward Jones broker. He's a very down-to-earth man, and he has a very sound perspective. He understands the marketplace. A former military man, he's a man who gives time to explaining how things work. So no matter how obscure your questions are, he will work together with you to secure your capital as much as can be done, and even attempt to turn a profit. His name is Patrick Neal, and you can reach Patrick at 870-7894. That's 870-7894. My name is David Tulis. We're brought to you also by Raphael's Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant. There are three outfits run by Rick Esparza. There's one in Hickson, just near the Highland Plaza up the hill a little ways, in Saudi Daisy, right next to the Saudi Church of God, and on Signal Highway on Taft. It's open every day. The big deal about Raphael's is this: if you buy one pizza, you get a second pizza free, and you can make them as big as you want. They're or as loaded as you want, anywhere from about $5 or $6 to about $19, and that's at Raphael's Pizza and Italian Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant. My name is David Tulis, and we are here exploring local economy and the free markets. We want there to be more liberty rather than less, because we find that constraining systems, constraining external legal systems, whether they are federal regulation or Sharia law, if that ever comes to this benighted part of the world, we can expect a grievous loss of prosperity as time flows on. The name again is David Tulis. I'm a former newspaper editor with newsprint ink on my hands from many years as an editor. My job was to make the business editors at the newspaper look good, and had a great time doing it. Our theory is the local economy, the free markets here in Chattanooga and beyond. And the slogan, if we had to boil everything down to a slogan, would be love your neighbor and buy local. We think there's a prejudice that you should have in your mind if you just start thinking about things with me that will enhance your personal connection and your personal economics. Part of that is avatar replacement therapy. The avatar is your corporate entity, the being that you have witlessly created around yourself, being part of commerce, being part of the federal legal system. But it goes beyond that, right? There's something about the soul, I think, that we're trying to get at, and we're trying to have a soulful view of economics, which is free market, right? The free market view would not condemn corporations outright, as people on the left do. The folks at CNR on Facebook, CNR is Chattanooga News and Review. Combatant, if you will, and you should go there too and read some varying opinion. When I post something, there's several people who are always condemning me. They're just I can never get a nice word said about me, nor any token of respect. But that's okay. You know, I've got you, my listener, and if you slightly respect me, well, then I think we can have a profitable few minutes together here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And our theory is near is better than far, and small is better than big, and simple than complex. And in the footnotes, we make conflict there too. Now, the good people say that corporate is better than personal, and that abstract is better than physical. And yet I say nay. I say nay, it's not true. We are for the reverse of that personal really matters, and that you should have a personal perspective. And therefore, you should take an interest in the work of, for example, Sustainable Freedom Lab here in Chattanooga, run by John Hannity. This is a terrific publishing outfit, and I'd like to send me an email at Nooganomics.com, and I will send you a free little ebook from John Hannity. It's about Agenda 21. It's about Thrive 2055 and the whole planning agenda, which promises to work over the decades, right? Over the decades, suppressive of you, suppressive of your genius, suppressive of your free use of your capital, your savings, your ideas, and make you slowly, bit by bit, rule by rule, meeting by meeting, public pronouncement by public pronouncement, less ambitious, less hopeful, more fearful. And finally, if the good people could have their way, we would all be their dependents. We would all have no initiative whatsoever. And John Hannity, among others, is working to avert that disaster. Well, I was mentioning about this hedge fund reported on today in the Wall Street Journal, and it's called Element. It's called Element Capital Management, and it is following a great trail. And it is part of an economy that I think we should do well to stay away from, and at least to understand it. And there's a great book I'm almost done with. It's called The Great Deformation: The Corruption of Capitalism in America, by David Stockman, who's a very feisty writer. And this book shows a great deal of his feist, though it runs past 700 pages. He says, and he's writing about hedge funds. And hedge funds are part of crony capitalism. They're part of they are a feeding economy that consume gigantic amounts of capital. Of course, existing capital and capital created in the credit markets, it consumes this capital, and that's why it's very hard for you to get a loan, and that's why we have zero interest rates today to prevent the collapse of this artificial body of so-called wealth. And the mutual funds, not mutual funds, but the hedge funds are sort of raiders. They're sort of they're bodies that track after momentum trading, and momentum trading is something that hedge funds do. You, my listener, don't know much about that, and I don't even know that Patrick Neal, our financial advisor in Hickson, would be able to help you there. It is very obscure, and only the people in the top flight 1%, the 1% of that 1%, these are the ones who run these business, and they move trillions around. Their economy is called the financialized sector, and it takes up almost a quarter of the American economy. And we have to say that it's not productive. It's not what you do, right? You, my listener, productive by providing a service or a product or an idea or your sweat, and that's creating value for your customer, right? Your client. But the hedge fund industry doesn't have to do that. It borrows billions of dollars, and then it tries to make a profit on very tiny differences in the sector. And I'll get to Stockman in just a second. There's a paragraph in the Wall Street Journal story today that explains just a little bit about how Element makes its living. It says these trades aim to take advantage of the effects of supply and demand in the $12.8 trillion Treasury market. The demand for these bonds often fluctuates based on various factors. A burst of new supply tends to slightly depress prices for short periods, sometimes for less than an hour. Okay. And so the difference, so in the past, Wall Street dealers and hedge funds scored profits shorting these so-called when issued bonds. These are contracts, the story says, conferring the right to purchase Treasury securities when they are sold days later at auction. Then the story goes on, these traders would buy bonds to close out their short sale. That was they're covering their tail ends with the older paper. The difference between the higher price at which they sold the treasuries and the lower price they paid at auction, here's the key phrase, was or is their profit. And that's what happens here. And this is the financialized sector. And Stockman says taken together, these allocation mechanisms are a potent financial laxative. They unclog immobile money and cause it to flow to the winning trades with a vengeance. That's why it's called momentum trading. The resulting uplift to any particular flavor of the moment trade in turn begets more momentum chasing and further replication by new players who pile onto the rising tide. Until winning trades finally finish their run and reverse direction, copycat replication is low risk because it is facilitated by the prime brokerage desks of the Wall Street banks. These desks keep their hedge fund clients He goes on to say that Wall Street prime brokerage operations perform a valid service, unlike what he's just been describing, such as margin lending, consolidated reporting, trade execution, and clearing and settlement. Indeed, it is the independent clearing functions of the prime brokers which safeguard against the Bernie Madoff style of self-cleared trades that were not actually that at all. And so there is a real function that these brokerage houses produce, but that older function, the legacy function, is down to a minuscule part of what they do today. Hedge funds come in and out of existence at dizzying rates, reflecting fluidity not even remotely matched, he says, in any other industry. In 2010, for example, 935 new hedge funds came into existence, while in 2009, more than 1,000 funds were liquidated. Using common back office infrastructure maintained by the prime brokers, the hedge fund complex is not so much a conventional industry as it is a giant movable trade. Wall Street trading desks frequently morph into independent hedge funds partnerships, and senior hedge funds often sire cubs and then sons of cubs. The protean ability, he says, of this arrangement to spawn, fund, and replicate successful momentum trade momentum chasing capital. So this is capital which is not invested in your business or in Chattanooga. And there are probably a few people in our range of our powerful AM signal in Saudi Daisy who are involved in this. But by and large, it is taking advantage of fiat money, differences of new issues of fiat money. And then, of course, in the international sector, you have the carry trade business, which is, again, in the trillions, going through the exchange in Chicago, which has ballooned hundreds of times greater than it was when it used to be involved only in the selling of pork bellies and corn futures. That was what it used to do, but with the help of the great libertarian thinker Milton Friedman, it became a gigantic casino. We have a casino economy, and it is not to your advantage. But I think it is to your advantage to know a little bit about that. And what my goal is to give you a positive sense of what you can do. My goal is to make you think in terms of local government, local investing, having your friendships here, having your charitable donations here. I have a Christian man I know who said that he's in a way taken up my argument that he's giving away his charitable cash not to a ministry in New York, where he had received a little bit of flattery to come up and maybe join the board and ride shotgun on some of his donations. And he said, well, that really didn't work out very well. A man that I had helped bring up there didn't work out, and it was all so far away, and you're detached, and so he's really focusing more on good things he can do here. And I think that perspective comes more readily to your mind as you gain just a little bit of suspicion about the good people and about their management of the national economy. I'm thinking we face disaster ahead, and Patrick Neal, the Edward Jones broker, he's not as sure of that as I am, and that's why I want him to be there for you who are not convinced quite as I am that he can help you with your brokerage needs, your trades, and get advice from him from Edward Jones, which is the largest privately held brokerage house in the country. It's privately held. It doesn't owe anything to Wall Street. It doesn't owe anything to demand for by public investors for results on the shares. So it's privately held, very conservative outfit. My own analysis is quite bleak, and I don't. Patrick does not share that, but it's good that you know that. All right, it's good that you know that my idea of diversification is that you diversify in local economy and that you not be solely in national economy. But if you're not there yet, that's fine. Okay, Patrick can help you. But my thinking is that we have really disaster ahead. Disaster because of you might say a coagulation of the economy. Coagulation is when things harden, right? It's like constipation. Internally, you have constipation. Things don't move. Things are illiquid. Things are not supple. They're not soft. They don't move rapidly. And the American economy is very much that because of partly because of government, partly because of financialization, which of course comes because the national government, the federal government, does not defend or honor lawful coin and currency. It is a patron of the Federal Reserve System, which is a private banking cartel, and that is the government's bank. And so these two entities have effectively nationalized local economy, made national economy. They've made local economy really much more difficult. And I think if those two organisms were gone, there would be a tremendous explosion of population. There would be a tremendous explosion of investment, of capital. There would be a tremendous optimism that would just flood Chattanooga and Hamilton County and all parts around. If those entities were suddenly gone, there would be a great deal of pain, of course, and complaint. But the people who saw the value of the marketplace would be exuberant, and slowly their confidence and their excitement at having a real free market would spread to those who were the former inmates of the federal system, the federal receipts system, right? The giant trough where we all are urged to be a part. And contact Bruce Krebs. Bruce Krebs is the man that helps you get into business if you don't know what kind of business to have yourself. Like me, I have a radio station, and it reflects my personality, right? It reflects the ideals of the two partners, Mike, Confederate Mike, and me. And so it's very distinct. It really can't be replicated because it's based on individual people. But not every business model has that limitation. Some business models are easily replicated, and you can buy into one by franchise. So contact Bruce Krebs at Entrepreneur Source at 875-5621. That's 875-5621. Entrepreneur Source. His name is Bruce Krebs. And make sure you say that you are the listener here at David Tulis show, possibly, or maybe other programs on AM AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are the station for the man who matters, and I'm very grateful that you are willing to give me just a couple of minutes of your time. I was mentioning a moment ago, and I'm running out of time, but I was mentioning the coming gridlock in the medical sector. It is an upgrade of the coding system that the back office staff of your doctor has to deal with. A back office system that, combined with insurance, takes probably half of your doctor's time. Your doctor has hardly any time left for patients. He has 2 or 3 minutes to give per patient. He's on a treadmill. His practice was bought by a company that helps management. It helps back office arrangements. He is a servant anymore. He's not a practitioner as he used to be, and he's sold his soul, and now he's reaping the benefits. And it is part of the pain that ICD-10, according to TV3, ICD-10 is taking effect on the 1st of October. And ICD-10, ICD means international. Hold it. It is the International Statistical Classification of Diseases and Related Health Problems. It's called ICD for short. It comes out of the World Health Organization, and till now there were about 14,000 codes. So if your doctor and his staff deal with you, they may have to really hunt through a gigantic volume of codes. There are 14,000. But according to TV3, to become more precise, the updated system has, get this, 68,000 codes. Now, if you printed all those out, with head notes and footnotes, you would have a very large volume naming the number and the condition. And so that is viewed by this AP story as an improvement that will help certain aspects of the medical field. And what aspects will it help? Well, it'll help something which you often don't think about, and that is the data mining function of having public records. Now, we have HIPAA, of course, which you've been annoyed by, HIPAA, which is the federal privacy law. But the HIPAA is a way of helping centralize the data system. And under ICD-10, which takes effect across Chattanooga and across the country, October the 1st, there will be more details, and that allows for better management, right? These are human management systems, just like public schools are human management systems, and it will allow, for example, the data to be more closely mined, say, looking for trends, right? You're looking for trends, and so you can mine the data if you have more data points. And what happens here is that your doctor has been converted into a click monkey. That is the phrase of a couple of doctors whom I have interviewed about this dreadful development. And I know 4 offhand here in Chattanooga who are going into the local economy version. There is a counter-revolution taking place, and it's taking place right here in Chattanooga. And I'm very excited to talk about these doctors. Just in a nutshell, if you want to write these down, let me give you a split second to get a pen. But these are cash doctors. They're concierge practices. One of them today is our advertiser, and in fact is having a show here on our All Talk station, our station, the Sean Hannity station here in Chattanooga. It's every other Wednesday at 11, just after my show. My name is David Tulis. We'll have Danielle Mitchell, who runs the Institute for Sports Medicine here in Hickson. But the other 3 that I can think of right quickly offhand are Homero Rivas here in Hickson. In fact, he is one building away from the Edward Jones broker Patrick Neal in Hickson, and he's a spine and body. It's called Chattanooga Spine and Body. There's Charles Adams in Ringgold. He's going to be moving to East Ridge. Concerned about integrative medicine. Now that's a key word, or integrative medicine, I should say, and that's a key word for alternative thinking, okay? And you're going to get that from Charles Adams. We resorted to him with the Sun sometime back, and we're very excited to hear about his change of practice to the cash model. You subscribe to Dr. Charles Adams. And the other one is David Red, who runs Quick Surge. He's a noted surgeon, and he's got this little storefront business called Quick Surge for all these quick little treatments that you can have that are surgical. They're surgical, they're quickly done, and you pay cash, and it's super, super inexpensive. Why? because the free market finds the true price. True prices can never be found in government-controlled, giant corporation-controlled systems. They can't be found there. They can only be manipulated. And come back to local economy, and guess what you're going to get? You're going to get true price, and you'll find out what? That their prices are lower and that they are to your advantage. I've got some things I want you to hear. Hang on.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Another warm and humid day expected for your Tuesday. Can't rule on an isolated afternoon shower storm popping up, though. Highs upper 80s tonight. Lows near 70 with some more clouds. With more unsettled weather for the midweek, scattered showers and thunder showers becoming likely through Thursday. Highs 80 to 84. Account temps provide salary ranges for more than 375 accounting and finance jobs. Learn more by visiting accounttemps.com/salary center. Account Temps, a Robert Half company. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in long-term health solutions, not the quick fixes. Come see me, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Or call us at 875-1005, 875-1005, or find us on social media, Facebook, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, or the ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Let's go, ya!
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week took over as executive director of the American Civil Liberties Union 7 days before the 9/11 attacks. Anthony Romero will be here to talk about the growing need to protect liberties guaranteed by the Constitution. Don't miss an honest look at post 9/11 America right here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
It's time to show Iran that the American people stand united for Israel and against this nuclear deal.
An urgent message from the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews in Jerusalem. A dangerous nuclear agreement reached with Iran threatens the U.S., Israel, and the free world. Here's Rabbi Yechiel Eckstein on the danger.
Iran continues to wage war.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSD. I'm Frank Sedapani. The White House says it's considering all options to help migrants desperate to escape war and poverty in the Middle East and elsewhere. CBS's Pam Coulter tells us that includes taking some of them in.
The administration wants to be more responsive to the refugee crisis and is even considering increasing the number of refugees who can come to the U.S. The Reverend Everett Shattuck, an Indiana minister, signed a petition calling for more Syrians to be resettled here.
We should take some responsibility to take those innocent people who are escaping the war and the carnage and help them out.
He says the U.S. bears some responsibility because its involvement in the Middle East contributed to the refugee problem. Pam Coulter, CBS News, the White House.
Austria is one of the European countries welcoming migrants by the trainload. In Vienna, CBS's Elaine Cobb tells us some who plan to travel on to Germany could change their minds because they've been made to feel at home.
It started with people filling cars with bottled water for the migrants. Now there's a full transit center with hot food from local restaurants, donated clothes and suitcases, and doctors and lawyers giving their time and expertise for free.
The U.S. diplomatic mission to South Africa says it's received information that extremists may be targeting American government facilities and business interests there. At the Vatican, Pope Francis has issued new rules that should make it easier for Catholics to annul a failed marriage so they can remarry in the church.
It's looking at people's lives in a very intimate level, and it's opening a path back to the church rather than putting up a roadblock.
Supporters of Kim Davis, the Kentucky official jailed for refusing to give marriage licenses to same-sex couples, are hoping for a big turnout for a rally a few hours from now. CBS's Jerika Duncan sets the scene outside the Rowan County Jail.
There's a small stage set up for what could be the biggest gathering yet for Kim Davis. There's a rally planned this afternoon. Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee is expected to be here.
There she is, a former Miss America, returning to the scene of what proved to be a short-lived triumph. CBS News correspondent Heather Bosch.
She won the crown in 1984.
Our new Miss America is Vanessa Williams, Miss New York.
But Williams resigned after Penthouse published explicit photos of her that were taken years before. Now, the Miss America organization says Williams, who's had a successful singing and acting career, is coming back. She'll serve as head judge for the 2016 pageant. The next Miss America will be crowned Sunday. Heather Bosch, CBS News.
The Virginia woman who was seriously wounded when a gunman killed a TV reporter and her cameraman during a live interview is home from the hospital. Vicki Gardner's husband says a bullet came within centimeters of making her the third person to die. The stock market is rebounding from last Friday's sell-off. In early trading, the Dow Industrials are ahead 279 points. This is CBS News.
Hi, folks. Alan Thicke here. You know, some things in life are just too serious to take chances on, and owing money to the IRS is definitely one of those. The IRS has the power to garnish your paycheck. They can levy your bank account, even take your home or business. Seriously. Thankfully, with one simple call, you can start solving your tax debt once and for all. Optima Tax Relief is the leading tax resolution firm in the nation. They have over 250 professionals. They have an A rating with the Better Business Bureau and the trust of thousands of satisfied clients. Optima's attorneys can immediately protect you from aggressive collections because they are experts in the Fresh Start Initiative. That's a special IRS debt forgiveness program that could save you thousands. Don't wait till it's too late. Get serious. Call Optima now for your free consultation.
Call 800-956-6166. 800-956-6166. 800-956-6166. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Members of Congress are among the millions of Americans whose summer vacation has come to a screeching halt. CBS's Stephen Portnoy tells us the House and Senate have a lot of catching up to do.
A response to the Iran deal is the first order of business. Pope Francis visits in 2 weeks. And by the end of the month, Congress will have to pass a funding extension or the government will shut down. Many Republicans want to include a provision defunding Planned Parenthood in any bill keeping government agencies open. But last month, Senate Leader Mitch McConnell argued that's a bad strategy.
The focus is on the fact that the government is shut down, not on what the underlying issue that is being protested is.
Stephen Portnoy, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
A 30-member surgical team at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, has separated 11-month-old conjoined sisters from Uganda. The girls were born joined at the spine and hip. Experts say conjoined twins occur once in every 200,000 pregnancies. Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
What improvements shall be put on that land, whether you expand your property by buying another lot, whether you set your old mother-in-law on a house next to yours in a house of a certain size. Are these things that you would like to have the freedom to do without interference, or without having the planning commission of your town have interference upon it and its members from afar, from perhaps HUD, the Housing and Urban Development organization of the federal government? These are questions that really matter, and I think they should matter to you, my listener, because we have here in the Chattanooga area an effort to accelerate the control of private property by non-governmental actors or regional governments or soft law operating governments that work not directly upon you, but indirectly by inducement, and having parties that have authority perhaps over some decisions regarding your property, have them to do things sort of by bequest, by suggestion, if you will. And to look at this question we have here in the studio, the author of an ebook, Inside the World of Planning, and his name is John Hannity. He is an executive who runs Corporate Measures, which he founded in 1989. He's a corporate trainer, manager, and he helps managers do better and to steward their people and their assets better. And the book is it's an ebook, and I mention it because I want you to ask me for a copy of it. It's called Inside the World of Planning. It's about 25 pages or so, and email me through my website, Nooganomics.com, and I'll send it to you as an attachment. It's a PDF. And we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, brought to you by Trade Bank of Chattanooga, which is the smarter way to barter and to improve your cash flow. You know that Trade Bank has been here for 30 years. And somehow you think, well, man, why would I want to be a part of something that's that old? Well, it's old because it is successful and it has lasted a long time at the hand largely of Jürgen Mutz here in town in Hickson. Jürgen Mutz, the German with the southern twang. Call him at 877-2202 and find out more about Trade Bank of Chattanooga, which is the smarter way to barter and to improve your cash flow. John Hannity of Sustainable Freedom Lab in McDonald, Tennessee, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for inviting me, David.
What is the most pressing thing on your mind today? You're a writer and a researcher, and you speak around the country on issues regarding property rights and, you might say, the managerial government that seems to be always in the works. What does my listener need to know about today?
I think the number one event on the horizon right now is a move by HUD recently that will affect virtually every community in the country. And, you know, it's funny, when we think about HUD, David, we think about some obscure agency that's in Washington, D.C., and they probably don't really. And that was, in many cases, was true. They were a good organization. They helped us with things like discrimination. But all of this has begun to change. They gradually gained more and more authority over the past decades, until today. Actually, in July of 2013, they passed a new regulation, which goes into effect last month here in 2015. That actually gives them control over local rule, over local zoning, and even where and how people are going to live. So everything's changed with them. And this ruling has a kind of a long to do that. But the problem with it is they changed the definition of what discrimination is. So HUD is no longer concerned in your community about just discrimination. They're concerned about things like social imbalances. Is there an imbalance, not just between, let's say, a minority group that can't get a mortgage in an upper class white area, but now they're concerned about all these ethnic groups, different countries of origin. They're concerned about people that have English language proficiencies or inefficiencies. And all of those now become lumped into this group that's being protected or watched over by HUD. Now, that sounds okay, except if you are, at this point, fool enough to accept HUD money, they're going to breakdown of all those different groups I just talked about. Then you have to combine that with the assets that you have and the resources in your community, and that might be the parks, the playgrounds, it might be entertainment, it could be jobs, it could be transportation modes, and so on. So now you make a list of these two, and then you say, well, what are the barriers that might stop that group of people from being able to access those resources to the same degree that everybody else in the community can? Well, now, there's going to be a lot of differences because one guy's making, $18,000 or $20,000 a year. Somebody else is making $200,000 a year. Of course, there's going to be limitations. Well, you have to account for those limitations. But here's where the catch comes in. It's bad enough that your local officials are now going to spend all their time, if they accept HUD money and if they are audited through this program, they're going to spend all their time putting all this data together. They now have to compare that to another region. So once the region is engaged in it, you now have to compare your numbers to their numbers, which means you just became enveloped and swallowed up by that region just by participating in the HUD AFFH program.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with John Anthony of Sustainable Freedom Lab. Well, John Anthony, give an example. Let's say we're talking about Saudi Daisy. Saudi Daisy is a municipal corporation. It's been around since about 1963. How would this development, which has it already begun, or is it just about to begin?
Yes. Yeah, it just went into effect. I mean, the law was written a while ago, then there was a public hearing for it, and then it just went into effect within the last couple of weeks.
Well, give a scenario using Saudi Daisy as an example so we can kind of get a grasp of what you're saying.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying this is or did happen to Saudi Daisy, but let's just take a look at what it could very easily look like. Let's suppose Saudi Daisy decided to apply for community development block grant money or money under one of the home investment programs that HUD has or several other programs. If they've accepted that money, HUD now says, okay, you fill out this application, and part of it is an assessment of fair housing. And when you fill out the assessment of fair housing, you have to establish what barriers might exist in your community that would prevent all these protected groups and all these different groups we identified from participating in all the assets that your community has to engage in. I not only want you, Saudi Daisy, to do that, I want you now to compare your numbers to the data coming out of the nearest metropolitan region, which could be Thrive 2055, it could be Chattanooga. Either way, you now have to compare your notes.
So so Saudi Daisy, the town mothers and fathers, the city council would have to gather data on racial makeup, income disparities,
racial, income, ethnic,
educational backgrounds. And how would that, seems like someone would have to be hired to do that research, but what would be the source of data that Saudi Daisy would use to make the report?
Well, if you can't get your own data, HUD will supply it for you. They have maps, demographic maps covering every part of the United States, Canada, and
so your assignment would be Saudi Daisy's assignment would be to data mine HUD's databases and maybe census databases as well,
and capture all of that data. And that's how they help to identify where are the barriers that are preventing these people from having a balanced community.
Well, it seems to me, John Anthony, that the idea behind that would be that all communities look exactly alike. You can't have lumps in the pudding, as it were. The pudding has to be perfectly smooth. You can't have any knots or lumps or uneven parts or very wet parts or very dry parts. You can't have any unevennesses in flavor, which of course that's human. When human beings do things by free will and in terms of the marketplace, that doesn't happen, does it?
This takes the idea of free will out of the equation. It takes the idea of local rule out of the equation. It takes the idea of you owning your own property out of the equation, because the mechanism that makes it all work are zoning regulations. In order to attain the balance that HUD's talking about, they want you to change your zoning regulations, or they want to move in Section 8 housing, whichever, in order to accommodate the balance. But they also want you to be in balance with the nearest region. So that means you just lost your autonomy. If it's Saudi Daisy, they just lost their autonomy because they're now part of that greater.
Well, how would city council of Saudi Daisy deal with that external pressure, if you will? Let's say the Thrive 2055 rep. What would the relationship look like? Where would that person be? Would that person be somewhere in Hickson or downtown? And how would the relationship
We
work?
don't know exactly, but because, Thrive 2055 has said to this point, we don't really have any unelected councils. But we also know that in other states where this has been done, there are none that don't have unelected, with the exception of one in the country, that don't have unelected councils. So in all likelihood, that's what it's going to be. Where will they be housed? Probably in Chattanooga, because right now for Thrive 2055, that's where all the money is located. So when HUD comes down, they're going to set up an affirmatively furthering fair house program through Saudi Daisy, as you exemplified, but also again through Thrive 2055. So the two will become merged together. So now, without ever asking anyone, all of a sudden, Saudi Daisy is now part of that greater region.
And that's because Saudi Daisy desires to comply. It desires to get the money, and its operators, the people closest to this external fount of knowledge and wisdom and power, there's a desire to comply with. We want to be approved. We don't want to have any objections to our analysis and our petition. And what happens then? What happens? Talk about the unelected council. What does it theoretically do in the HUD plan?
Well, the unelected council is ultimately the group that's going to make the whole program work. If you submitted a program to accommodate HUD's desire to balance the community, somebody has to make that work, and that will probably require zoning regulations. Well, who's going to enforce those zoning regulations? Who's going to make sure that Saudi Daisy does what it's supposed to? Well, that's going to be the regional council. They're going to make sure. That's how they just became submerged into that.
So you have an elected body, which such as Saudi Daisy,
which is subservient to
the regional.
Okay,
which is not elected. So those people they're appointed, or they hired on these regional councils? How do they attain their positions?
Sometimes they're elected. They're rarely elected. They're appointed. Usually they're just appointed, sometimes by a mayor, sometimes it's just a group of people, business people who got together, or members from a local college or local planning commission or local transportation authority. They get together and then they decide, we're going to take this money from HUD because we need it to develop the area to bring it up to global comparative needs.
Well, John Anthony of Sustainable Freedom Lab, this sounds very anti-free market. Therefore, it sounds like it would have the opposition of chambers of commerce. Is that true?
No, it doesn't have the opposition of chambers of commerce, because chambers of commerce are in it for the short term. If the workout plan to satisfy HUD says that we have to have a new transportation center that's built, guess who's going to get the work? There's going to be jobs, there's going to be money there, and everybody wants that. So it's very enticing for communities to sign on to this HUD money, because it's going to be short-term cash. The problem is, most of the time when the money comes in, it doesn't fund the long-term maintenance needs of these programs. So they'll get the program started, but where are you going to get the cash to keep it going? So you have two problems. One, you have short-term cash with a long-term need, so you end up having to raise taxes in the community to pay for these programs. And the second problem is most of these jobs are just temporary. So you're selling the autonomy of your local community. You're selling your local public officials' power down the drain, and your rights over zoning authority you're giving away, all to get some jobs right now that disappear.
So to take the federal money now for the short-term startup of the program and a little bit of maintenance in the first year or two, what local governments are doing is yielding discretion. They're saddling themselves with commitments or pretended commitments to maintain a federally launched program or effort, and they will be trying to collect the tax burden from the revenues from local people by sales taxes, what are they called? SPLOST taxes in Georgia. Talk a little bit about Thrive 2055, John Anthony. You're a researcher. You're a longtime student of these questions. In fact, you have an ebook that you're making available to our listeners today. Very large. At Nooganomics.com. It's my website, my local economy website, and just ask for it, and I'll email that to you as an attachment. Okay, that'd be very kind if you contact me about that, and I'd like to get that into your hands. Good feedback. What is Thrive 2055, John Anthony, and what does my listener need to know about it and how it works?
Okay, Thrive 2055 is a self-defined amalgam of 16 different counties in 3 states: Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama, and it has all of the sprouting, all of the birth of another region, just like they have out in California, Seattle, San Jose, Los Angeles, and so on. So it's simply another region that's in the middle of formation. They started this thing a couple of years ago, and ultimately the desire is going to be to urbanize the community, begin to move everybody in the rural areas back in closer to the urban areas, build this high density housing, and then set up transportation modes so that it's easy to get back and forth from job to work. And now all of that doesn't really sound too bad, but the problem is the local region that's ultimately going to, or the regional authority that's going to have to be established to make this whole thing function, because it won't function without it. That region ultimately is going to tell your local community what they have to do. And so that's one reason not to join this, because if you want more transportation in your community, there's ways to get that. If you need better roads, there's ways to work with the Department of Transportation to get those. You don't really need to join part of a region to get anything that they're offering you, but you do give up your autonomy in the process. Now, right now, if Thrive 2055 decided to get heavy-handed and say, we've got a region and we want you to join us, you could opt out of it and you say, we don't want to be part of this. But with this HUD new ruling, affirmatively furthering fair housing, all they have to do is marry your local HUD plan to Thrive 2055's HUD money, and you just literally de facto became part of that. Your local official lost his authority, and you will abide by the regulations that are established through the regional council. So this is another reason why the only way out of this right now is just to say no to the HUD money. And I know that's hard. You know, sometimes it gets—
Why is it hard?
Well, it's a lot of money. Sometimes it can be $2-3 million, and people say, "Wow, if I can get $3 million in my local community, you know, I can put this excavation company to work. I can put my buddies to work. Well, you know, and we can talk about jobs, and I look good. So everybody wants the money, but you don't look so good when the taxes go up and the money runs dry, and you find out that there were no new jobs that were long term. So what you really need to do is find out ways to work locally. And you talk about that. I know a lot, David. Is let's keep everything local. HUD's new programs are the exact opposite of keeping things locally. They're really turn everything into a centralized program. It's almost like the old Soviet communities that they had back in the 50s and the 60s that we fought so hard not to become like.
So the solution to economic, there's a pretext that is sold to the listener. Do you want economic development? Do you want growth in the area? Yes or no? Okay, the answer is, well, yes. Okay, well, here we are. We are offering ourselves through this voluntary program, very well organized, full of local input, and we are going to help the area organize. We're going to have a plan that we create. And so there's really, it's very attractive and appealing. And the idea is that you want to be part of an area that plans, right? If you don't plan, if you fail to plan, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That kind of, and that's a nostrum which I think really can't apply here, because it pretends that the marketplace doesn't exist. It pretends rational. That's the whole thing. That the listener is not rational. His business interests, his clubs, his groups, his connections, they don't operate rationally and reasonably.
You have just hit on all the major flaws of this program. First of all, these programs all look wonderful. You're going to see these new bus lines going through. You're going to see new transportation stops. You're going to see new buildings going up. And honestly, the communities look absolutely great. The problem with these things is who can afford to live there? When you live in a community like Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I was just checking the government files, the 23.5% of the population is below the poverty level. Do you think by putting affordable housing in there that's going to lower the rents from $775 a month to $750 a month, that's going to make a difference? It isn't. It's not going to help them at all. But everything's going to look nice because you'll have these new buildings. So the poor keep getting poor. They keep getting displaced. The disparity in income between the wealthy and the poor begins to grow. So none of the promises that are made are actually kept in this program. And the other problem is that it's not being paid for, and you're losing all your control over your local communities at the same time. It's not part of a free market system. And if you look at what Thrive 2055 has done, because this is all kind of married into one big ball here, they have not engaged the community as much as they say they will. They did a survey that's been up for about 2 years now, and I think maybe less than 1,200 people have participated in it. Well, if Thrive 2055 gets their way, they're going to engage over 1 million people. Now, when you've got 1,200 people out of 1 million who just bothered to fill out a survey, and only a fraction of that has been engaged in any process, that means technically nobody is involved. So what do we have? We have a smoke and mirrors dog and pony show here, where we talk about community involvement, we talk about David, that's what I really want your listeners to understand. The best way to get around all this is just by transparency. Start reading some of these HUD regulations. Start looking at what happens when regions are set up in other areas. It looks nice on the surface, but when you scratch below it, it brings a nightmare of losses.
We read these regulations, John Hannity, and we feel suddenly we have to take a nap. Our eyes are glazing over. And we are certainly very glad that Sustainable Freedom Lab and you, a writer and an executive, a management manager training executive, that you are concerned about this. I think the answer, the solution is to not confuse two letters of the alphabet, the letter N and the letter O. Confuse them. Often we say on. We see them and we misread it. We have a little bit dyslexic and we say on. So that means get on, come on, go on, and continue as we are effectively. But what you're saying is no, the word really is no. And if we say no, we will get on perhaps in a different way. And that will be in a way much more prosperous, much more exhilarating. I think the listener is excited about the idea of a marketplace, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with John Hannity. Go to Nooganomics.com and ask me for a free copy of his a brief that John has written. It's called Inside the World of Planning. It's inside the world of planning. It's not a lot of heavy lifting, but it's penetrating and insightful. And you're hearing the man speak now. And I'll send that to you as an attachment, no charge. It's just something that we'd like to help you with. You, our listener, we are glad you're giving us a couple of minutes of your time. I've got some things I want you to hear. Hang on.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week took over as executive director of the American Civil Liberties Union 7 days before the 9/11 attacks. Anthony Romero will be here to talk about the growing need to protect liberties guaranteed by the Constitution. Don't miss an honest look at post 9/11 America right here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Another warm and humid day expected for your Tuesday. Can't rule on an isolated afternoon shower storm popping up, though. Highs upper 80s tonight. Lows near 70 with some more clouds. With more unsettled weather for the midweek, scattered showers and thunder showers becoming likely through Thursday. Highs 80 to 84. Accountemps provide salary ranges for more than 375 accounting and finance jobs. Learn more by visiting accounttemps.com/salary center. Accountemps, a Robert Half company.
I opened our first Jets Pizza. We believe if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets. Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas, every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Fox News Talk 1240. Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Fox News Talk 1240.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Jailed Kentucky clerk Kim Davis, who refuses to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples, could have a growing number of presidential hopefuls on her visitors
Senator
list.
Ted Cruz says he wants to meet with Kim Davis during visiting hours at the jail today. It's a separate visit than the one GOP hopeful Mike Huckabee has planned.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers.
A third candidate, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, also told Fox News.
We've got to be protecting religious liberty in this country, and the Constitution has to be protected. People have a right to practice their religion. Now, I've said what I would do with this woman is to move her to another job where this is not an objection for her.
A white supremacist making his final plea to jurors who consider whether he should get the death sentence for killing 3 people at Jewish sites in suburban Kansas City. And the woman who survived an on-air shooting that killed 2 TV journalists released from the hospital. Her husband said doctors removed one of her kidneys and some of her colon. Fox News, we report, you report.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
I have a very early breakfast, and I don't eat lunch until after my show. I try not to distract my body with blood going anywhere other than the brain, the old cranial area. I'm hungry, and I'm looking forward to eating lunch. I usually pack my own lunch, economizing. Now, if you want to treat yourself and do something different, go to eat at Delia's Authentic Mexican Restaurant in South Saudi Daisy, just near the Thrasher Light on Dayton Pike. Maria Hernandez cooks the best of Mexican fare and loaded nachos and crazy chicken, homemade tamales, enchiladas, quesadillas. If you're a German and you've just moved into the Chattanooga area to work with Volkswagen, make sure you put Delia's on your to-go-to list. It's a very, very humble place. You almost don't notice it as you pass it by. But this time, I hope you will not pass it by. You'll say, oh, there's Delia's. And David has eaten there, and Confederate Mike has eaten there. And there's a special every day for you. And today is the taco salad number 19 on the illustrated menu. And ask for that. Also, ask for a free iced tea. But to do that, you get it free. You have to mention that you've heard Delia's on the radio. Just say that, and Delia's will know that you are one of our listeners and deserve a little reward for that. We are sponsored by Sky Aerial Services. And also want you to know that Carter Shooting Supply is the place to get your handgun. You can practice at the range at Carter's Shooting Supply on Highway 58. Hunting rifles, scopes, all kinds of equipment, ammunition, and the roughest, toughest, meanest looking .223 caliber rifles as well. Also 30 caliber at Carter Shooting Supply. Do go in there for your source on weapons, self-defense, and also practice. This is David Tulis. We're talking with John Anthony. John Anthony moved to the Chattanooga area because we are an attractive state, and you, my listener, here in Hamilton County, need to be thankful to, in God's providence, be living here where there are many advantages. There are many advantages to living in Chattanooga and Tennessee, and we're hearing from this writer, a man who goes around the country talking about the maintenance of property rights, how to keep your property rights as against gigantic, very well organized here a little bit more effectively to put property rights and property owners in their place, right? In their place, which would be not any place at all. John, thanks for joining us here on our show.
David, thank you.
Well, tell us what Sustainable Freedom Lab is. That is what you do. You are a businessman who is a corporate trainer, but also in tandem with that, you run this lab, which is your place of publishing.
I'm glad you asked. Thank you, Dave. By the way, I came down. I love Nooganomics, the whole concept of Nooganomics. We moved down to the Chattanooga area about a year ago, and it was primarily for the tax benefits, the advantages, and the economy of this local area. It's just so it's vibrant and it's growing down here, and also you got a reasonable amount of taxes. So we find that a nice combination. But Sustainable Freedom Lab is interesting. I couldn't avoid realizing that virtually all the programs that come into areas have to do with sustainability. It's sustainable farming, it's sustainable growth, it's sustainable highways, sustainable transportation, everything's sustainable. But it seems in the process of that sustainability, our rights just don't seem to be sustainable at all. They seem to be dwindling away. So I started this website and this movement called Sustainable Freedom Lab. And the whole idea is to study ways that we can not only discover that we are losing our freedoms. And when I say we, I mean everyone. I don't mean just conservatives or libertarians or the people on the right. I mean those in the middle and the left also. All of our freedoms are dwindling away. So what can we do to help people recognize they're dwindling away? And then what can we do to help try to change that? So that what we talked about in the first segment, HUD's affirmatively furthering fair housing, part of what we do is try to make people aware of this. Just get it out there through books, through ebooks, and so on, so they're aware of that.
So just in a nutshell, John Anthony, what is the news from HUD? What does my listener need to know in a few words what this threat is and with the temptation that goes along with it?
HUD has expanded the definition of what they mean as protected classes for discrimination purposes. Instead of discrimination, now they talk about adverse impact. They talk about community balance, social balance, and social imbalance. So these are kind of nebulous terms that they reference, and it gives them a broad sweep, a broad ability to control what your community looks like. And the best thing you can do at this point, honestly, because they've taken over so much authority using these broad definitions, is just don't take HUD money. Today, just remember the strings that are attached to that are nowhere near what they were before.
Are there strings attached to old HUD money or only to new HUD money?
Eventually, they're going to be attached to all HUD money, old and new. but what you got a couple of things working on our favor here. For now, the easiest way for HUD to implement these programs is to just attach it to new money. So if you fill out an application, you apply to HUD, then you're going to fall into this affirmatively fair housing edict, along with the assessment of fair housing, and then a workout plan to reduce barriers. You're right in it. Then you're probably not going to get out of it. Later on, they're going to go for the beyond the low-hanging fruit. They're going to go back decades ago and take anyone who's applied for this HUD grant money and see if, in fact, they meet the requirements of AFFH. So right now, I would say just say no. And meanwhile, there are people trying to get legislation through Congress that will begin to clip the wings of this program.
So that again, that's a way of where the government orders people to make a study with a kind of egalitarian framework to come up with all the facts to kind of mine the data about that particular town or that county's peoples and assets, and again, that already the problem with that is that people are already being made, they're being turned into objects and subjects. They're being turned into things that they're not human beings anymore. They're just resources and assets, and everyone's being measured in terms of an economic context. It's as if the people are converted into data, and then they're strip mined by this HUD.
way to put it, David, but that's exactly what's happening. People are being converted into data. The programs that you put together are based on data. It's not people any longer. It's simply data. There's not enough of one group living here, so we're going to move them over there. They don't have access to a park, then we need to make a change. We need to alter the financial structure of your community. And meanwhile, the community can't do a thing about this because HUD has passed down a regulation. When the money was accepted, part of the deal was you have to adjust your zoning to meet the HUD requirements to fulfill the needs of that plan. So once you get into this program, there's no getting out of the program. So the best way is don't get in it in the first place and keep your planning local, which is always a healthy idea anyway.
So people need to be lococentric and really jealous of outside influences, even if those influences are graced with engraved faces of old presidents and the like, right? Cash.
Lots of old presidents and lots of new promises and lots of glitzy and great promises for the future. But I can only assure you, beneath the veil of those great promises, there's a much darker side that you're not going to be very happy with your community. When you go in your backyard and you say, I want to put a new swimming pool back there, and you find out you can't do it, even though your town council said you could, even though you have a variance to do it, but you're told you can't, you're going to begin to find out just what HUD means to you and your community.
And there are examples in your writings, John Anthony, that give these details.
Oh yes, yeah. In fact, I have an article that's online about. In fact, I believe it's on your website there about the enslavement. It actually, literally enslaves your community. So I urge you to enables U.S. to enslave cities to its will. That literally is what happens. But what's deceiving about these programs, they're very easy to sell because they're all about what we're going to give you. We're going to give you money. We're going to give you income equality. We're going to give low-income people better jobs and easier access to workplace. So how could you not be in favor of these? It's when you see how they roll out and what they accomplish. And if you want to know what they look like, take a look at HUD. I'm sorry, take a look at Westchester County. Well, that's something else you're holding up. But let me
okay. Describe what I'm holding up for the viewer on YouTube. We are Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240, and all of our live shows, even mine here, David Tulis, our show streams live on YouTube. And I'm holding before the lens here a graphic that's called Market Ceiling and Regulatory Excess, and it talks about what, John Anthony? What does it show?
This compares 4 different metropolitan regional areas. So the 4 on, I guess the audience's left, the 4 on over here. Here we go. Audience's left. Actually have not participated in these regional programs with these smart growth building and construction, as is kind of the outcome when you get involved with these HUD programs. So they don't have it. Now, if you look at the yellow there, you see that's basically the price of the house. But if you go over to the right and you see those other 4 communities, Washington, D.C. and Boston, I think are some of the communities over there, all of a sudden you see that purple section on top. That's the additional cost of the housing is put there by regulations and zoning regulations and building requirements, all based on the smart growth programs. So they're averaging across the country, they had about 160,000. Definitely hurt the poor.
How do they hurt the poor?
Well, they hurt the poor because they can no longer afford the housing. One of the reasons we talk about affordable housing in these areas is because there's no other way for these people to even possibly begin to live there. The housing costs go so high. And a perfect example of that, and I often point to these different examples. We don't have to wait for Thrive 2055 to become a formal regional with a council. We don't have to wait for HUD to start sending money into the area to find out what's going to happen. Just go out and take a look at Portland. Portland is held up as one of the most beautiful cities in the country, and in fact, it is. If you visit there, it is. You don't want to leave. It's absolutely beautiful out there. But when you dig beneath the surface, it's a much different picture. In 1989, before 1989, it was one of the most affordable, lovely cities in the country. Then smart growth set in and regional councils in around 2000. Between 2000 and 2010, 10,000 minorities were forced to leave the community because they could no longer afford to live there.
Now that means that they left because their landlords, if they were renters, said the rent's going up 15% this next year or 10%.
The rents had to go up because the cost of housing went up because they drew growth boundaries around. And once the growth boundary is around, what happens is the growth then through zoning regulations, we have high density zoning inside the growth boundary and low density outside. So as you have less of something, like less property because of the growth boundary, well, when you have less of something, the price goes up. So suddenly the price of land goes sky high. Then when the building codes are changed and the new regulations come in as what's necessary for stormwater runoff and for construction needs, what happens is the price of construction begins to skyrocket. So you end up with higher and higher prices. So what that's done in places like San Francisco, San Jose, California, it's driven the prices to the point that only the very wealthy can afford to live there. And San Jose, by the way, after almost 30 years of smart growth policies like we're looking at right here, $1,000. Now, how is that going to help somebody who's living below the poverty level? Right now, Chattanooga it's a wonderful community. It's a very attractive community. Homes are very affordable. You got the median income here is around $38,000 according to the Census Bureau 2013 census. And the average price of a home is about $138,000. So you've actually got an affordable area here. But with the high poverty rate that you have, you've got to find ways to keep the cost of housing down. And urbanization, densification, creating growth boundaries, bringing in groups like Thrive 2055, grabbing HUD money with all their stipulations added to it will only drive the costs up. So I urge the town council in Chattanooga, I urge public officials in Chattanooga, when it comes to this money from HUD, just say no. Keep your planning local. You've been doing a phenomenal job. You need to keep doing that.
What is the interest among the UN elites and the globalists who are, we have to call them the good people, John Anthony? What is their interest in having this segregation, this massing of people in cities, and a sort of desertification, if you will, or emptying out of countryside? Why?
Well, there's been a global movement for years, going back to the 60s and even further than that, a global movement to return nations, not just the United States, but all these nations to their natural vegetative state, that man is destroying it. In fact, to some of these extremists who are in the UN and other organizations like that, they think that the world can only hold maybe 500 million to 1 billion people. That's a top population. Well, we're already at 7 billion, heading for 8 billion. So what are we going to do with all these people? So they feel just herd everybody in. So what's happening here in the United States is very much in concert with this global movement to densify communities and move people into these local regions. But studies have been done, and quite exhaustive studies, that show actually there is no loss of resources. There are enough food on the planet right now to feed man for something like 200 years into the future. So it's not like there's a shortage of these things. There's less farming taking place because, frankly, we don't need it. We're more efficient with the farms that we do have. We can get more crops per acre than we had with yet less people.
Well, we have factory farming now, John Anthony.
Yes, we do. Well, that's another side of it. But we have access to food. We have access to water. I mean, enough water flows through the Columbia River every single day to basically feed everyone in the United States, to water everyone in the United States.
Well, here's a problem that I have. It's kind of a question and it's kind of a problem. My idea of local economy seems to align in some ways with the globalist agenda. I've had guests and we've discussed zoning that has a kind of a lococentric perspective, that's use-oriented buildings as opposed to form-oriented buildings. That's a development in Chattanooga. And I complain that, well, it's still government control of property and that so it's bad, whatever. It's going to be outdated in eventually 20 years or 40 years from now. The whole idea of community, the whole idea of people walking to work as opposed to driving, these are all very winning arguments, and in a way, they win me as well. So what danger do I have as a lococentric person, a person trying to be lococentric, trying to favor my hometown? What danger do I face? Where am I thinking is you might say the enemy going to draw upon and pull me into his orbit? What does the localist have as a way of a vulnerability in his thinking vis-a-vis this globalist herding prospect?
You know, nobody comes into your community and says, we want to herd you globally. Nobody comes in and says,
No.
What I want to do is drive you out of your car and put you in a bicycle. They don't do that.
No.
Instead, they put a bicycle lane up and you don't want to drive anymore. So you say it's such an annoyance. And then when they take a poll, they say, well, I'm getting sick and tired of the traffic. Well, the same people that were complaining about the bicycles are the people that built the roadways and are driving you out of your cars. If you look at I believe it's Los Angeles, which has some of the heaviest traffic in the world. So the most used freeways and byways in the world are in Los Angeles. And yet the mayor over there just announced that they were going to open up new lanes for buses and bicycles and walking. Well, now, and they're not going to add new lanes. They're just going to take it out of the existing ones. So whatever traffic was there now is going to be worse. Why did he do that? Well, he made no bones about it. We want you out of your cars. We want to get people out of their cars. So what's the matter with
that? To cut air pollution.
Yeah, to cut air pollution, which the EPA director all of their goals for reduction of air pollution, it isn't going to make any difference on a global basis. So we're doing this again. Why? Now, what's wrong with being moved out of your cars? The problem is being moved. That's what's wrong with it. I want to move out of my car because I choose to, not because somebody coerced me to, or coagulate or constricted the byways so badly that I can't get there anymore artificially.
Right. The establishment wants you to have inducements to do what they want you to do voluntarily. They don't want to force you to do it. It would be too heavy-handed. It would not be popular. So they want to make it so that you choose with your free will, John Anthony of Sustainable Freedom Lab, to not use your car.
Nailed it, David. Thank you. You just nailed it. What we have to, as community members, be aware of is that the verbiage is always, we're doing this for you and we're doing this with you. We want you to participate in what's going on. We have an outreach program. We don't want you to get out of your car unless you want to get out of your car. But what they're going to do is make it so that the only thing you want to do is get out of your car. So at the end of the day, it's a choice with no choice. And that's the piece that we need to be able to segregate out in our thought processes as we critically think about these things going forward. There really are no choices, though the verbiage says that there are.
Now, you're the author of an ebook called Inside the World of Planning that you've given me a copy of, and we're asking you, my listener, our listener, ebook, and I'll be glad to send it to you. What is the point you make in Inside the World of Planning? What's the key point, John?
The key point is that very often the planners, who are the folks behind doing many of these programs that are taking away your property rights and setting up zoning regulations and that limit what you can do with your own property, have no idea what they're doing. I mean, they come in there innocently. They're really just trying to improve the environment. They're trying to make your community better and more globally competitive. But they really don't see this as them taking something away from you. And that's dangerous because you're really, it's like somebody from the United States talking to someone from Japan and having no idea of the language. You're talking the same words, but you're talking completely different
those people are my listeners' enemies. My listener's enemy, but that person doesn't realize he has any enemies at all. He's just doing a good job as a civil engineer.
That's exactly right, and that's very deceptive, and it's hard to negotiate that because I met a wonderful gentleman. His name was Randy. This is up in Pennsylvania, and I'm sorry, over in New Jersey. Now he's with a group called Together North Jersey, and what they're doing is regionalizing 13 counties. And by the way, when they started their program, they swore up they were not going to be regionalizing anything. Now all of a sudden it's graduated. Well, yeah, we are going to regionalize it. So they're regionalizing.
We see the light.
These 13. There's an unelected council that's already there, and basically they're going to begin overriding local rule in the process. He and I were having lunch one day, and I say a delightful guy that wouldn't in a million years want to step on your property rights. He started talking to me about the United States and how it's a democracy. And I said, Randy, I says, you know what? The United States is not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. And he looked at me. Now, this is a 40-year-old man with a college education, multiple degrees. And he looks at me and he says, well, no, people have tried to tell me that before, but I think that's a bunch of hooey, that we're not a constitutional republic. He really has no idea what a constitutional republic is. He has no idea what the difference between that and a democracy, or in fact, even the downside.
And what's wrong with him not knowing that? How does that affect his job?
Well, it affects his job because it gives him a holier-than-thou idea. Idea of how he can regulate people's lives. If he has a good idea and he can come into the community. See, under a constitutional republic, we have representative form of government. We have people that get to sit down and decide, can we do this or not? He's taking that representation away by creating an unelected council.
Right. In a constitutional republic, John Anthony of Sustainable Freedom Lab, we have divided government. There are layers of government. Yes. They're related to each other. They're accountable. There's no hegemony or total control or absolutism is not possible when that structure is honored. Yes. But in a democracy, very quickly on many areas you have sudden despots who have great ideas, great service orientation, and they're going to bring about some benefit to the listener or other. Well, tell about, I wanted to ask you about another thing you'd mentioned. You had a dinner or a conversation with a New Jersey state planning team. What was that about? You had some insights there
the
too.
New Jersey draft plan. That was around 2012, 2013. We had a dinner, and I met with the entire team of planning for the state of New Jersey, and I asked them a simple question. If we build all these urban areas and we get in there for 4 or 5 years and decide we want to get out again, can't we just pack our bags, sell our house, and move out? And the answer was this: you may want to do that, but you're not going to be able to afford it. I said, why not? He says, because we're going to need that tax money from those rural areas in our central area to begin to pay for all the urban infrastructure that we're putting in. There's not going to be money left out there.
So the people who are in rural areas, even in other states, in the Thrive 2055 encompasses 3 states on its maps. So there you might have someone in Alabama sending money to Chattanooga to help the urban plan here.
Yeah, that's probably the way it's going to end up. Yeah.
It sounds like a real mess, John Anthony. So how can my listener contact you?
John at shatteringamericastrance.com. Just send me an email at john at shatteringamericastrance.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
That's shatteringamericastrance.com. John Anthony runs Sustainable Freedom Lab. That's also online. This is David Tulis, and our show covers local economy and the free market. Do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time. Make sure that if you have numbers problems, that you contact Eric Pelton. Eric Pelton is the numbers guy here in Chattanooga, an accountant, a CPA who does tax returns and gives advice. 622-3156 is his number, 622-3156. Now, I've got some things I want you to hear. This is David Tulis, and listen up, would you?
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Another warm and humid day expected for your Tuesday. Can't rule out an isolated afternoon shower storm popping up, though. Highs upper 80s tonight. Lows near 70 with some more clouds. With more unsettled weather for the midweek, scattered showers and thunder showers becoming likely through Thursday. Highs 80 to 84. Accountants provide salary ranges for more than 375 accounting and finance jobs. Learn more by visiting accounttemps.com/salary center. Account Temps, a Robert Half company. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in long-term health solutions, not the quick fixes. Come see me, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Or call us at 875-1005, 875-1005, or find us on social media, Facebook, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, or the ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Let's go, ya!
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's EJ Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622